In 2019, WeWork was worth $47 billion. 6 weeks later, it was worth $8 billion. That's $39 billion gone in 43 days. But the money didn't just disappear. It was moved. It was laundered. It was stolen legally. This is the paper trail. This is the S1 that exposed everything. This is how Adam Neumann fooled Silicon Valley, Wall Street, and SoftBank all at the same time. Boardroom bio. Case file, WeWork. The rise, Adam Neumann had one idea. Rent office space. Split it up. Sublease it for more. That's it. That's the entire business. Landlords have done this for centuries. But Neumann called it community. He called it we. And Silicon Valley bought it hook, line, and sinker. By 2019, WeWork had 828 locations across 71 cities. They were the biggest private office tenant in Manhattan. They were the biggest private office tenant in London. They were burning through cash at a rate of $219,000 every single hour. And every VC firm from here to Sand Hill Road kept writing checks. Why? Because the story was irresistible. Neumann wasn't just selling desks. He was selling a movement, a cult, a religion with better furniture. SoftBank's $9.3 billion blind bet. Enter Masayoshi Son, the CEO of SoftBank, a man who'd already lost $130 million investing in Neumann's previous startup, a baby clothes company that sold onesies for $50. Most investors would have walked away. Son doubled down. SoftBank poured $9.3 billion into WeWork. $9.3 billion. That's not an investment. That's a religion. Son looked Neumann in the eye and told him he wasn't thinking big enough. He told him to go crazier. So Neumann did. He expanded into WeLive co-living apartments with tiny bedrooms and shared kitchens. He launched WeGrow, a private elementary school. He started a wave pool company, a surf camp, a tequila brand. Every idea got funding, every idea lost money, and nobody said, stop, the cult playbook. Here's how you know something's wrong. At WeWork's annual summer camp, yes, summer camp, 8,000 employees flew to the English countryside for 3 days of music, speeches, and forced fun. Neumann arrived on stage carried by a man in a full-body bird costume. He handed out shots of his own tequila brand. He cried, he screamed, he crowd surfed. They called him the We. New hires were given a 30-minute interview. Not about skills, but about energy, about whether they fit the vibe, about whether they believed. This wasn't a company. This was a personality cult with a real estate license. And the financials, they were even crazier than the summer camp. The S1, filing the document that destroyed it all, with the 14th of August, 2019. WeWork filed its S1, the paperwork to go public. This is the moment everything changed. Because the S1 didn't just show numbers, it showed the truth. B-roll, S1 filing document scrolling. Red flag, WeWork lost $1.9 billion in 2018 alone, not revenue losses. They'd lost more money in a single year than almost any startup in history. And revenue? Growing? Sure, but costs were growing 3 times faster. Second red flag, community adjusted EBITDA. Neumann invented a new metric, a made-up number. He took standard EBITDA earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, and then he removed even more costs. Building expenses, marketing, everything that made the number look bad. He literally invented a metric to hide $2 billion in losses. Wall Street analysts had never seen anything like it. Third red flag, and this is the big one. Neumann had personally trademarked the word we, the company's own name, and he sold that trademark back to WeWork for $5.9 million. He charged WeWork rent on buildings he personally owned. He borrowed hundreds of millions from SoftBank, using WeWork stock as collateral, and then cashed out before the IPO. He was the landlord, he was the tenant, he was the lender, he was the borrower. Every transaction flowed through his pockets first. If you're finding these red flags insane, the made-up metrics, the self-dealing, the $5.9 million trademark hit, subscribe. Every case file we drop breaks down one collapse, one paper trail. No fluff, no spin, boardroom bio, 43-day implosion. WeWork announces its IPO valuation. Not 47 billion, not 30 billion, 20 billion. A 27 billion haircut, and the market still said no. Institutional investors saw the S1. They saw community-adjusted EBITDA. They saw Neumann's self-dealing. They walked away. September 24, WeWork slashes the valuation again to 15 billion. Still no buyers. October 1, the IPO is officially withdrawn. Done. Over. October 22, Adam Neumann is forced out as CEO. But here's the part that'll make your blood boil. His severance package. $1.7 billion. $1.7 billion to leave the company he destroyed. He got a $185 million consulting fee. He got $500 million in credit from SoftBank to buy his shares. He got a $500 million loan forgiven. The man who burned $47 billion walked away with more money than most companies will ever see. SoftBank, the hostage situation. Why did SoftBank keep paying? Because they were trapped. SoftBank had already invested $9.3 billion. If WeWork went to zero, that $9.3 billion was gone. But if they kept funding it, even at a fraction of the valuation, they could pretend it was still worth something. They could keep it on the books. They could survive. So SoftBank offered a $9.5 billion rescue package. They took 80% ownership. They fired 2,400 employees. And they wrote Neumann the biggest golden parachute in corporate history because they had no choice. He held all the cards. He owned the trademarks. He controlled the voting shares. He was the company. And the company was him. This is what venture capital looks like when it breaks. Not innovation, not disruption, just a hostage negotiation with better PR. The employees, the real victims. Here's the part nobody talks about. 2,400 people lost their jobs. Cleaners, community managers, office staff. The people who actually built WeWork, not the ones who drank the tequila, they got severance packages averaging $4,500 each. Neumann got $1.7 billion. The average employee got enough to cover rent for 2 months. And the stock options? Thousands of employees had exercised their options, meaning they'd already paid real money to buy WeWork shares at inflated valuations. When the IPO collapsed, those shares became worthless. Employees didn't just lose their jobs, they lost their savings. Some of them owed WeWork money. One company, 2 sets of rules. That's the real story, the bankruptcy. March 2020, COVID shuts down every office on earth. WeWork, already on life support, loses its only source of revenue. Nobody's coming to the office. Nobody's renting desks. The 6th of November, 2023, WeWork files for Chapter 11, bankruptcy. Listed liabilities, $19 billion. $19 billion in debt. The company that was once worth $47 billion couldn't pay its rent. Literally, its own rent. In buildings it had leased from itself. SoftBank wrote down $14.6 billion in WeWork losses. That's not a bad investment. That's a crime scene. Where is Neumann now? Adam Neumann is worth an estimated $1.4 billion. He lives in a $44 million mansion in Miami. He started a new company, Flow, a residential real estate startup. Andreessen Horowitz invested $350 million. The same Silicon Valley that watched him destroy $47 billion gave him another $350 million. Why? Because in Silicon Valley, failure isn't a disqualifier. It's a credential. Neumann proved he could raise billions, that he could convince the smartest investors on earth to ignore their own math, that he could walk away from a crime scene with $1.7 billion and nobody could stop him. That's not a bug. That's the system working exactly as designed. The paper trail, what we learned. Let's follow the money one more time. Neumann took out $1.7 billion. Employees lost their jobs and their savings. Landlords lost billions in broken leases. The public never got an IPO. And the company, once the most valuable startup in America, now trades for pennies. The S1 filing is still public. You can read it yourself. Page 47, the related party transactions. Page 83, the community-adjusted EBITDA definition. Page 112, Neumann's personal loans against company stock. It's all there, every paper trail, every self-dealing deal. every lie documented, filed, and signed. The lesson isn't that Neumann was a genius. He wasn't. The lesson is that the system rewarded him anyway. When you invent your own metrics, trademark your own company's name, and sell it back to yourself, and investors still write checks, the problem isn't one man. The problem is the entire machine that funded him. $47 billion to bankruptcy. 1S1 filing exposed it all. One man walked away with $1.7 billion. Boardroom bio case file closed. If you want the next paper trail, hit subscribe. Next case file drops soon. Drop a comment. What company should we investigate next?